Hi everyone, this is Neha and welcome back to my new channel. In this video of Interview Code, I'll be interviewing Sunidhi who got into Oyo as a product designer. This is for all the design enthusiasts out there who don't want to go through this traditional route of software development, but they want to do what they always wanted to do. So let's get started. Hi Sunidhi, how are you doing?
Hi Sneha, I'm doing good. What about you?
I'm also doing great. So first, let's get to know more about you. Let's discuss your technicals, your non-technicals, just a basic intro.
Okay. So about my technicals, I am an IT student turned product designer. And about non-technicals, I'm just another person who loves to do art and a little bit of music. So that's about me.
Wow. So I can see why, like art, design, I think they just kind of mesh together really well. So,
Yeah, actually, yes.
so moving on to about this like opportunity, like you are getting into Oyo as a product designer. So how did you find about this opportunity? How did you apply?
Okay, so I have actually been searching for an internship opportunity for a while now.
Right.
Uh, I OYO was one of my target companies.
Right.
So what I did was I actually tried many things while I was applying for the job because since I was doing it off campus, so probability played a huge role. So I applied on LinkedIn, on company websites,
Hmm.
and I tried to connect with the employees, the designers through LinkedIn.
Right.
But the one thing that really worked was to cold email the employees. So when I cold email, I think so 4 to 5 employees from OYO itself. So I
Right.
got one reference. So that's how I got into the interview.
Wow. That is something that I have not heard of usually. So all of the come so far,
Yeah.
it's like on-campus placements or through off-campus like company website, but cold mailing and actually getting that opportunity. So great job on that.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. But again, it was like a senior once gave me this advice that if you apply for 100 companies, then you'll get one response. So that is one thing that plays a huge role. So,
So I want to like now talk about the exact screening process, the interview process that you went through. So let's discuss that.
so actually, I got a call from the HR regarding the interviews, and 2 interviews were scheduled back to back.
Right.
And the third round was actually decided on the results of the first two.
Hmm.
And before that, actually, I got a notification on LinkedIn that a person from OYO viewed my profile.
Right.
But I thought that was just a coincidence. But luckily, it was not. So that's how it happened. My interview rounds were scheduled. Now, about the first interview, okay, the first interview was really interesting. It was a proper design interview. Like, I myself didn't have an opportunity to give such an interview. Like before this, whenever I would apply for a startup, and I think this is the experience for many designers starting out experience,
Right.
that they're given a certain task
Hmm.
and they're judged upon that task.
Correct.
But I wasn't given such a task. They purely judged me on my abilities, my skills, and my existing project.
Hmm.
So about my first round,
Hmm.
it was it took about 1.5 hours.
Hmm.
So first, uh, just like any other interview, it started with the introduction, and he asked me about how he got into design. So there was that, and then coming to the main interview process, the
Hmm.
first thing that they asked was what was my design process. So every designer must have a standard set of processes that he or she follows for approaching a problem statement. So I had my own, but it must be very parallel to the existing design processes, such as double diamond process, or there is a standard process given in an article by the NM group, Nelson and Norman group, that anyone can check it out. Standard design process, Nelson and Norman group. So from that, I got an idea, and that was the set design process that I would follow. So I explained that to him. Now, about the portfolio,
Hmm.
I was asked to explain a project of my choice. So moving on, uh, just like any other interview process,
Right.
the discussion took place on one of my projects. But
Okay.
the catch was, in my portfolio,
Hmm.
I already had an existing UX case study, but he actually refused to move on with that case study because it wasn't a case study or a product that I had made from scratch. Rather, it was an extension of a feature that I designed for an existing application.
Right.
So to be honest, I panicked at that moment. But luckily, I had a project from doing hackathons and making multiple side projects.
Right.
I had one project that was roughly documented that
Hmm.
I had created from scratch.
Hmm.
So I was very honest with him. I explained him that this is not my strongest case study, but just to show you my procedure, I'm going to explain this. So
Right.
I explained him my procedure and how I approach a problem statement, and he asked me a set of questions. Now, whenever there's a UX design or UI UX design interview,
Hmm.
it never takes place in a question answer format. Like
Right.
the interviewer is not expecting a correct answer from you or the best answer from you.
Right.
They're only expecting you to know the process, or they just want to see how you approach the problem.
Right.
Now, a simple example, a simple statement or a fact that will help you understand it is, they'll ask you to propose solutions to certain problem statements.
Hmm.
Now you have to keep this in mind that in big firms, solving that problem statement takes months and months of time. So
Okay.
how can you come up with a solution in an hour or 15
Right.
minutes or 10 minutes?
Yeah.
So that you have to keep in mind so that you can be a little bit reasonable with your answer, and so that you won't actually let it get inside your head. And so that's one thing that I like to keep in my mind whenever they're asking questions. Second thing is, since I told you that they don't want a perfect answer from you, they just want to see what is your approach.
Hmm.
So whenever they ask you a question, just take a minute
Right.
and then answer. So this is a standard advice, but with product design interviews, you can actually ask the interviewer to give you a minute or two to collect your ideas.
Right.
I did that multiple times.
Hmm.
So this does not show underconfidence or anything. In fact, this shows that, okay, you're taking the problem statement seriously and you're actually thinking upon it.
Hmm.
And I'll emphasize on this point further ahead. Let's move on to what happened in the first interview.
Right.
So the whole discussion took place upon my case study, which I wasn't proud of, but still he was convinced with my answers.
Yeah.
And he asked again. He cross-questioned me a bunch of times, and I answered. One interesting thing that happened in this interview was, so I have interacted with many designers before this interview, and one feedback that I got was my UX skills were really good, but my UI skills weren't exactly good.
Right.
So I was really underconfident about my UI skills, and I thought that this is going to cost me, and I'm not going to get into OYO. Like there is no chance. And that's why I actually set up my whole portfolio around the UX design. I
Okay.
presented myself as a UX designer,
Right.
but still, they expected a little bit of UI knowledge from me. So to make up for it, I very calmly try to explain the interviewer that these are the things that are lagging in my design skills, and I'm still working upon them.
Right.
And I explained to him. So what he did was, he himself asked me, how would you approach designing a screen, designing the UI of the screen? So I explained him my procedure. So I told him that I like to explore and learn about the existing design systems of existing companies, or and try to learn from them. So to be very honest, that wasn't a very good answer, but it was acceptable because I was a fresher.
Right.
And yeah, so one tip would be that no need to panic if you don't know it all, because if you know everything perfectly, then you would be a senior designer in some form. So yeah, so he himself told me that for a fresher, it's acceptable. But then I again researched about what could be a good answer for it. Then I found out that there are many things involved when you make UI screens. You have to look for, you have to learn about your users. You have to make sure that people with disabilities, visual impairments such as color blindness, etc., will also be able to adapt to your design. So these are a few things that you have to look upon. The important thing is accessibility. Like even if your design is very aesthetic, and many designers like to copy designs from Dribble and Behance, but most of their designs are visually very pleasing, but not so accessible. So yeah, so you have to make sure that your design is accessible. So this is the answer that I would have told him, but I didn't. But okay, so one thing that actually got me through this UI dilemma was that, okay, so this is an interesting story. Before Oyo, actually months before Oyo, I applied for another startup. Like it was in its very initial phase then. And I was rejected just because my UI was not good. And I made a standard website homepage for that as a design challenge. And I was rejected because they pointed out that my mistakes, and they actually didn't focus on the plus points. So okay, I was really upset. But even if I was upset, I didn't have anything else to show to this interviewer. Still, I showed him the Figma file of that design, and he actually liked it. So yeah, so when I discussed with him that I had it reviewed from another designer, and I know that there are some mistakes, and it could be tweaked a little bit. So he told me, he actually gave me an advice after the interview. When it comes to UI design, it's very subjective. I mean, everyone has their own opinions, so don't just listen to everyone. Like he actually told me mid interview. So that was a really good advice, which I would like to give. So when it comes to UI, even if you get a negative feedback from someone, it's all right. Try to improve by yourself. Try to see if your design is accessible, and that's it. You'll find someone who will actually see the potential in you. So that's something. Now, second part of the interview was the whiteboard testing. Now, this is really interesting because I was very excited for it. I have only heard about it and read articles about it, but never thought that I'd get to experience it so soon. Like it should be a standard process for the interview, but sadly, for many startups don't consider this. But so now I'll talk about what is whiteboard testing.
Okay.
They'll give you a problem statement at the moment, and what you'll have to do is they'll give you maybe 25 to 30 minutes.
Okay.
And you'll have to propose a solution. And it's not just a small problem statement. This problem statement will require you to write the use cases, write the users, write all the benefits that can be provided through your solution. And you have to write your UI elements. You have to write the steps and the user flow. And you also have to make lo-fi wireframes by showing them the whole user flow. So these are the things that you have to perform in a whiteboard testing. Now, how to do it well? When they are giving you a problem statement, don't just agree upon the statement and start
working on it
with the solution. Never do that. It's a big no when it comes to a design interview. Like if you right away go to, if you right away just start with the solution, this does not give a good impression, sadly,
Right.
because it means you don't really care about the problem statement. So what you have to do is, once they propose a solution, again, you ask them for a minute or two
Yeah.
to just ponder upon it. Then you have to cross question. First thing, you'll have to ask him who would be the target user. And if he doesn't have any answer or any constraints for you, then you have to propose at least one or two user bases for him.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's about the user. And similarly, you have to ask him for other constraints if he has anything in mind. So that's one thing. And then third important thing is, you have to think about the user pain points by yourself. Like, what user pain points led to this problem statement,
Right.
or what could be the pain points after you propose a user flow. Now, the problem statement that I got was, uh, there's a donate tab in Zomato. So he asked me to create a feature that will help the needy people in such a way that other people can donate food to them through Zomato.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So, and the catch was, he didn't just include the poor people who need food. He also included families, lower middle class families, where the whole family has corona, let's say, or is suffering from a crisis, and the person can donate even to them.
Right.
So this is a problem statement. So now let's go back to the procedure that I followed. Again, I asked him as many follow-up questions as I could. So in my case, the target audience and the user were different. Users contact the people who use Zomato basically, but that was not something that I could write, that Zomato users are my users. So my users were people of people who have abundant income, people who are middle class families, and one set of users that I included were NGOs. So that was something that the interviewer really liked, the idea. So it always helps if you come up with something very outside the box, So, and you're totally free to just experiment with your thought process, experiment with ideas. That's what they actually expect from you. So I included social workers and NGOs. And one more thing that I included was people donating food for ritual purpose. Okay, let me explain that. So, for Navratri and for any festival, how many people have this ritual of donating food to the needy. So what is, we just included that in this problem statement, and they can donate food through Zomato just by a few clicks. So I also included them in the users. Now here my target audience and the users were different, right? Who are my target audience? People who cannot afford food, or people who are suffering from COVID or any crisis. And okay, moving on, there's benefits. So what would be the benefits that would come from your solution? So I included gamification in this. And this is a very popular concept among designers. Like, whenever you want the user to use a certain feature, the user always expects a benefit, right? Like, for example, if the most basic example is, if you want your app to be downloaded by many people, so what you do is, you ask the current user to forward the download link to someone else, and if they use your link to download, you will get reward points. So that is what is an example of gamification. So I included gamification too in my solution. Second benefit would be that it could provide a good platform to do a good deed. Like many people want to do such kind work, but they don't really have time to do it. So if you can do it through your app just by a few clicks, then that's a really good benefit from it. Now coming to the use cases. So there's a simple trick to write your use cases just mirror your donation UI. What actions your UI elements are performing. So after this, you have to explain the user flow. That is the main steps that would be required to use your feature. So I just mentioned step by step how a user would. In my solution, there were two main things. First thing was that a user can donate through NGO. So all he has to do is just order through Zomato's user flow. Okay. One thing that I kept in mind was, since you're introducing a feature to an existing application, you have to make sure that the user flow is already very familiar to the users, right? So ordering through Zomato has its existing flow. You cannot change that. If you do, the user will get confused and there will be a certain drop of rate, and people might not consider using your application or your feature. So what I did was, there would be two options. First, donate through NGO, and for that, you can it will redirect you to the ordering page, and you'll order through Zomato in a very standard way. You'll place the order, and after you place the order, it will ask you if you want to donate this food through NGO or you want to donate this food to a family. That is, you want to choose your own customized location. So that was it. This was the main feature and the user flow that I provided, which I explained. Now here you can see I broke down the main steps and the extra steps separately. The reason was, one thing that I would like for people to know that I think so many are familiar with the flowchart or UI and UX. So if you just Google a few user flows and basically the flowchart, then you will understand that there's always this main step user follows, and then there are some extra steps that are not really required. A very simple example for it is when you log in, when you use your Instagram, let's say, what you do, you open the Instagram and you explore the features. But the standard flow is you open the Instagram, you create an account, then you log in, and then you use the features. But this is not something that I need to mention every time, right? Or especially when I'm given a problem statement that is focused on donation, I cannot go back to explaining to create an account and everything. So what I did was, let's say the user is using this feature for the first time, or when the user is very used to using this feature, just like it happened with Instagram for the first time, or on a regular basis. Moving on, I prepared lo-fi wireframes. Again, I had opened the Zomato app on the side so that I wouldn't make big changes on the screen. So this is my user flow that I prepared, and that's it. That was the whole whiteboard testing.
Okay. Awesome interview experience. Like a lot of the things that I'm learning through this are actually like how design is actually like really solving a business problem. Like it's not something that people just think it's design. It's really thinking about the user, the perspectives, and understanding how it's even about psychology in a way. It's about everything. It's really amazing.
Yeah, exactly that. Like you have to think from multiple perspectives, and if no matter from what background you are, it always helps to bring something different to the team. Like I have done a little bit of coding in college since I'm from the IT stream, so that is actually an advantage if I'm applying as a designer, because I can then be empathetic to the coders. So
Wow.
and if you're from a psychology background, then you'll know how the users think, you'll have a lot more user empathy. So that's it.
This is such an interesting way of looking at things. Like, I swear to God, when you said that it's going to be an advantage, I thought it was going to be something like, okay, she can also maybe code something a while, like she can also implement the design or
Yeah.
something. But the answer was like, so wow. Okay, so I now want to know more about the second interview. How did it go? Let's understand that.
Okay. So, okay, my second interview was the best interview that I ever had given because yeah, I really enjoyed the whole process, and by the end of the interview, I actually forgot that okay, this actually would be a defining moment for me. But still, so
This is what happens when people follow their passion, I guess.
yeah, exactly. So okay, through the second interview, I can actually explain the advantage of having a strong portfolio. Now, in my portfolio, again, as I said, I presented myself as a UX designer, and a UX designer is more involved in the user research part. So, since in my first interview, all the basic things were covered. In my second interview, the interviewer asked me to present my best case study or my best work.
Right.
So that was really interesting because I actually took 1 month break from applying for jobs just to prepare this case study and just to build my portfolio. So it was really nice to have a chance to present that. So another tip would be to have at least one strong case study, like take 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever you want, but have that case study with you. And that case study should showcase your strengths. So I'll explain a little bit about my case study. So the problem statement for my case study was how to reduce the environmental effect of fast fashion. Like many people aren't aware that just how harmful for the environment fast fashion is. I mean, the clothes that are lying in your closet are much more harmful for the environment than the vehicles that are shipping them to you. And this is based on actual data. Yeah, so this was a really interesting problem statement. Now, if any designer is struggling to get an interesting problem statement like this one, I would suggest them to go to productdesign.tips.
Okay.
There's
I'll
a
link
site
all
called
of
as
these down, like whatever things we discussed. Right.
okay. Yeah, great. So I got this problem statement from there and I worked on it. Now I'll explain my design process.
Right.
Now, first thing I do is discover. That is learn more about the problem statement. And in this step, I would really ask the designers to not constrain yourself. Like many people, what they do is they think of a solution and then they backtrack toward the case study. And no, like I would really recommend not to follow the backtracking like process here, because if you genuinely follow the design steps, it will for sure make a strong case study.
Right.
Now, for the discover part, again, I didn't constrain myself. I talked to as many people as I could. I watched many videos. In fact, I watched a stand-up comedy on this, like Hassan Minhaj's video that I think you should. I would like you to link that to this description as because that really explained the problem statement really, really good. So again, yeah, be open. Like from wherever you can get the inspiration, just go for it.
Right.
It doesn't have to be all professional and everything. I even mentioned this thing in my case study that I watched YouTube videos and shopping haul videos to get the idea and to understand my user better. So that was that. So after the discover phase, there's something called as define. Now, in the discover, what you did was you talked to many people. You basically you conduct surveys, but since I didn't have the resources to conduct surveys, there's one tip that you can follow. You can search for existing surveys. Like there are many surveys that would really benefit your case study. I can't remember which survey I looked for, but you'll get many, like many from official resources. I even tried to study the annual reports of fast fashion companies.
Oh,
So that, yeah, that's what helped me to, explain my discover phase a little better.
right.
Second comes is define. Now in discover phase, what you did was you would also conduct telephonic interviews and surveys. In define phase, you'll have to break down everything that you have studied and learned so far and really define it. It's just what it says, define your problem statement. So one thing that I would highly recommend to include in your case study is affinity mapping. Like that's what I did. So I had many points that related to my problem statement. Okay, I'll explain what affinity mapping is. So regarding this problem statement, when I interviewed people, I got multiple points from the users. Okay, now again, I didn't constrain myself with the questions. I asked very general questions such as, are you aware of the fact that fast fashion is harmful? Do you try to take steps for, towards environment? Like, do you are you responsible towards environment? Do you think you are responsible towards environment, etc.? And again, how often do you shop? And do you think that the clothes you have in your closets aren't enough? So many people like to think that they don't have enough clothes to wear, which isn't true. We all know.
Right.
It's just like our insecurities that we don't have anything new to wear. So that's something which is like involuntarily harming the environment. So I addressed all those issues. Now for affinity mapping, you can use FigJam for it, for creating the affinity map. So it's nothing but virtual stickers provided to you. That's it, a virtual whiteboard and stickers. So I mentioned all the relevant points on the stickers.
Right.
And after that, I categorized them.
Okay.
So there's a really helpful article that I'll share with you, where this process would be clarified. So it doesn't have anything else to do, just simple collect your data and categorize it.
Okay.
So that's what I did in the define phase. Then there's one section that you should include in a case study, the how might we questions.
Okay.
Like how might we address this issue, or how might we propose a solution such that the user would like to adapt to it. Right. So all the questions. One thing that I really forgot, that I included H&M in my case study. That is, I chose to add a feature to H&M. And when you're choosing an existing product, you have to explain why.
Right.
That's why I read annual reports of fast fashion companies, and I found out that H&M was the most transparent one, and it already had many features and many campaigns towards addressing this issue itself.
Right.
So that was what really helped me to build my case study really strong. Now, after the discover and define phase, there's the developing phase.
Right.
That is, you'll start to make your lo-fi wireframes and high fidelity wireframes, and that's it. That is the process that I don't think I'll have to explain to a lot of designers, because this is something that many designers already enjoy. It's nothing there's sketches that you can make here. You can make low fidelity wireframes like on Figma, and then there's high fidelity wireframes. That's it. But you must explain everything, like why this button was here, like why did you choose to uh, have this feature on this screen, why you think this is a good solution. So
Hmm.
you'll have to explain everything. Now also in the develop phase, before making the screens, I think, yeah, that would be better. You have to show the user flow. Now I did it in 3 ways. First, I made a general user flow. That is nothing. I explained all the steps and made an arrow. That's it.
Right.
Second, yeah. The second was I actually made comic book style diagrams explaining the whole flow, because in my solution didn't involve much of the screen experience. It
Right.
included the whole thing, like from shipping to uh, basically from shipping to how your product will go to the storage houses and everything. So I would really like it if you would just read my case study, then it would make a lot sense. Like I don't think we have much time for
Yeah.
yeah, for that. So that's it. So yeah, so and I think so one takeaway point would be, if your user flow includes the user experience apart from your screen, then you can include this comic style diagram. Like, so that is also something that gives a visual representation of the user flow. And the third one was flowchart. Flowchart is the easiest one and the most technical one. So okay, now the last thing is to deliver. Now in the deliver phase, what you do is, again, it is something that is done in commercial level. Like I couldn't what should I say, deploy my solution. And but still, the next step is usually testing after the deliver phase. I couldn't perform the testing myself, but for those of you out there who actually want to include testing too in their case study, I would highly recommend to join Slack channels that are for the designers, for UI UX designers. Like you'll get plenty out there. Like there's 10K designers, you can join their group and just ask them to test your prototype and give you suggestions. Or there are many virtual feedbacks. I don't know, they're actually not free, maybe they're paid, where you can conduct online tests where the user will have their video on all the time. So you can actually note down the user's pain points and how much time it took for them to discover your feature and etc. So that's it. I explained them. And yeah, always end your case study by explaining them how your proposed solution will actually be impactful. I missed out on one thing. You have to mention user personas. That is, just take any persona, such as I took 2 personas. One was a typical millennial woman who is in her 30s, and she is also a bit responsible towards the environment and is aware of the issue. Second persona was a typical Gen Z girl who is a social media influencer and is really more concerned about getting more and more clothes. So that was one thing. So again, the solution that I proposed is again in the case study itself, but I think I broke down the steps that you can follow for for making any case study. Another thing, if you're associating yourself with any company, try to propose a solution that would be very much parallel to their business idea or their business model. Like don't deviate from it, because that question will come up, and it came up in my interview, that what if this won't bring, or this will hamper the profit rate of the company. So I had to explain it to him that all I did was just enhance their own solution, H&M's own solution. And that's why I believe that it won't hamper the profit. So again, so this was the whole interview. Actually, I explained my whole process and he would cross question me. And again, if you follow these steps and you don't backtrack on your case study and just be aware of everything what is happening with your case study, then I think you're good to go. Like he'll cross the interviewer would have any cross question and you will be able to answer it. So yeah, that was my second interview.
I'm having all these thoughts right now. Like first thing I'm gonna do after this call is gonna go through your whole case study and read it, and I'm gonna share it with all the design folks that I can find. Not just design folks. I think this is relevant to this topic. I think the one that you've selected is like I think very relevant to society nowadays. So kudos to you for sharing this whole process,
Um,
breaking it down, and also like the amazing work, and like even reading the annual reports and finding the actual doing the actual research behind understanding how we can solve this problem. So really, I really
yeah.
understand like this process must be really intellectually stimulating to you as well. This whole
Yeah, actually, it was really, really great experience just making the case study. And yeah, thanks. I'm flattered that you like the idea.
So moving on to the third interview. Let us know more about what happened in the third interview.
Okay. So the third interview, it took place a week after the second one. So, okay. The important thing about it was the third interview was taken by the product manager. Okay, again, one more tip is like whenever you'll be assigned an interviewer, luckily my meetings were already scheduled. So if that happens to you too, just check out the LinkedIn profile of that interviewer. So you can get a better idea about like what is his role in the team.
Right.
So yeah. So the biggest takeaway was that he was a product manager. Like, no, that's not his career. Okay, again, yeah, that's not important. So he was a product manager. So I Googled the existing product managers interviews this time, like how product managers take interview. And also I wasn't really sure that if my third round was going to be an HR round or not, because the competencies I was given for this round uh, were really vague actually, like just how you approach the problem statement, are you updated with the trend, or are you a team player. That were the competencies. So I really thought it was going to be an HR round, but no, it was a typical product management round, we could say. So I would highly recommend to check out existing product manager interviews on YouTube, and there are many, and they really helped me. So the tip that I shared about asking the interviewer to give you a minute to collect your thoughts.
Yeah.
This idea I actually got from watching those interviews.
Right.
So this interview was a little bit different because he asked me to explain any case study that I liked. So he already had read my case study, so that went really fast. And yeah, I really thought that I screwed up this interview. So what they do is they give a problem statement, and this problem statement is different. How my problem statement was many adults do not prefer to use e-commerce websites. So how would you bring those users, like people above the age of 50, into using e-commerce websites? If you target that audience and you propose such a solution, then it will benefit the business a lot, like it will benefit the firm a lot. So yeah, in product management interviews, you have to be very much cautious about the business model of the company. Like that is your whole focus. It's not about the UI, it's not about the UX, like a little bit about them obviously, but still major focus is how you target a particular audience. So I was asked that, let's say Flipkart, how would you bring older users into using Flipkart? Okay, so since the meeting happened in Google Meet and the video was on everything, you yeah, do not hesitate to, yeah, also the screen sharing was on, okay, but still do not hesitate to open that application or website that the interview just suggested in the problem statement. Like, I generally asked him, like, can I open the screen so that I can have a better idea? And he said, yeah, go for it. So the screen sharing was on, and I was sharing the screen with the Flipkart screen, home screen with him, and I was discussing the problem statement. One mistake that I made was I jumped right into the solution. Like, I was that nervous, but it's all right. You can always pull back and approach the problem statement again. So again, what and another tip would be, always have a notepad with you. Like, even if you're not writing anything, just pretend you're writing something. So yeah, so you write everything down, the problem statement. So when I was proposing the solution, he himself asked me that no, don't go to the solution right away. Let's discuss the problems or the user pain points, why the people above the age 50 cannot or do not prefer to use e-commerce website. So that was it. We were discussing, basically, yeah, basically it was like a discussion session. So we were discussing about the problem statement, like maybe this could be the reason. And the funny thing about that interview was, I actually, since I had opened the website and I forgot to consider the mobile app, right? So I told him that, why doesn't Flipkart have an audio button next to the search bar? I told him, and I was like, I mean, it is something that would really help these people, right? Because then I explained him how I see my mother using that feature a lot. Like, she already doesn't like to type, like, so, and most people that age use that feature, right? So so let's say you have built the feature. Now what would be your next step? So my answer was to perform the user testing. And there are multiple types of user testing, right? So what I really prefer in all my answers was that I would go for, or I would perform guerrilla testing. What guerrilla testing is, that you randomly go to the users with your application or with your prototype and ask them to use it and ask their feedback right away. And what is the benefit of it was what I explained to him, that, if you conduct testing in a constrained environment, like when the user sees it coming, that, okay, I am a part of a test, then it wouldn't produce a good result, right? Like, you need a normal chaotic environment for it. So I explained it to him. So I think he liked the idea. That was my third interview, and I kept on looking signs on Google of like signs that your interview went bad. So I think that, again, I think it really depended on my first two interviews, and that's why maybe the third interview took place like in a hurry. That's it. But then again, this thing is a living proof that in a product design interview, you are not required to give the correct answer. Like, they only want to see your approach, because when I checked the mobile app, obviously there was a speech to text. So yeah, that's that.
Wow. All right. So coming on to the next question, like, for a beginner, how can they actually break into this field of design? What would your advice to them be?
Okay, if you're a total beginner, I would highly suggest that take a huge amount of time into learning about these things before you can actually, present yourself. Okay, I'll divide this into two parts. Okay, first thing, if you're a beginner and you are also in the beginning of your college, so then you have plenty of time. Just do whatever work you like, try to explore this field. I mean, there's not just, design is not a whole field in it. Like there are many parts to it. Like there's UX design, UX researcher. Like you can be a UX researcher, UX writer, you can be a UI designer. You can also be a UI engineer, but that requires more of a front end development part. But still, if you have a little bit of design idea, a little bit of idea and design, and you also like development, so UI engineer is something that you can consider.
Right.
So just explore everything, like even graphic design, animation, just explore everything. And I assure you whatever you learn will benefit you once you find your sweet spot in design. So that's one thing. And if you're in your beginning years of college, just publish anything that you have created in your Behance. And I would highly recommend to start looking for an internship through AngelList, LinkedIn, like just anything. Like don't worry about like what kind of company it is. You don't have to target anything. Just it's just you'll get a big learning experience. Like my very first design internship was as a graphic design intern, and even though I didn't continue it for a long time, I learned a lot. Like I learned how to interact with people in corporate world, so that really helps. And second thing, if you're in a career crisis and you feel like you're a beginner, like here I'm considering that you have a little bit of idea of how design works, but you have no experience.
Right.
Like I technically didn't have any experience in my portfolio, like UX design experience. Like graphic design, it doesn't really count here. The product design experience, I had none. So for that, I was suggested to pull back, take your time, 2-3 months at least, and create a really, really strong portfolio.
Right.
And one more thing, if you don't have any experience, try contributing to open source. Like there's this organization Fedora. I mean, even if you are even if you join today, you can participate in their fortnightly meetings. So that's one really great thing about Fedora. Or just contribute to any open source. So that is something that will add to your advantage. So yeah, and then after you have a strong portfolio, just apply what I said in the beginning of the interview. Just apply anywhere.
Right. So one more thing, like you're talking about applying to all these places, but how many opportunities are there out there, like for in this field of design for freshers?
Okay. Well, I'm not gonna lie. There are plenty opportunities, but there's one thing that is really going to suck when you apply for design is that whenever you'll add that filter in job postings on LinkedIn, that filter that says beginner level, when you search for design, it would be really hard to get a lot of opportunities. So that is sad but true. And even if you'll get beginner level opportunities, like entry level jobs, you'll see people mentioning 2 to 3 years of experience, even in entry level jobs in design. So yeah, I mean, I was applying for an internship for entry level roles, yet I was asked for previous experiences, and open source didn't count for many.
That is so weird.
Yeah, that is, really. I mean, people expect designers to be experienced and everything, but that cannot happen if you don't get an entry level job.
If no one gives the chance, then how are you even gonna get that experience? If every company.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I got rejected for this reason only because I didn't have any experience. That being said, coming to the hopeful part, that the design market is really hot right now. I mean, now people are demanding good designers. So if your portfolio is really strong, you will get companies who will want to hire you and who will consider the fact that you're a fresher.
Right.
So don't get disheartened
Hmm.
when you see that you're not getting many opportunities. Like, just go for it. And one thing. So when I was applying with my first portfolio, right? So again, I faced many rejections and etc. etc. And I did get one offer from a startup, and I wasn't satisfied with that offer. Like,
Right.
my first graphic design internship was much better than that offer. But even though I was really desperate, I thought to give it up and take 1 month for myself and then go back. So if I had taken that opportunity, I wouldn't be in OYO right now. So again,
Don't sell yourself short.
so
Don't sell yourself short.
yeah, exactly. Do not sell yourself short. That is so true. So again, what I'd like to say is, just don't get disheartened from seeing this culture in design, right? That you're not getting many opportunities, many entry level opportunities with zero experience, but still apply for them. Just apply for them. Try to get that interview, like try to contact them, try to sell yourself, and then you'll just get an opportunity fit for you. The best thing is, I think, and about like how many opportunity are there, like it would seem that there isn't much hope when you're a beginner. Especially for me. I mean, I was already in my final year of my college, so I thought that I lost all the time. Like, if I had gained experience in my first, second, third year of college, then it would have been relatively easy. Yes, if you have a previous experience, then it would be relatively easy, because they ask you where you have worked before. The only main requirement is that even if you don't have experience, you have to, if you have worked with a startup and your ideas have been deployed, that is a huge plus. So try to do freelancing, etc. And if you reach out to enough people and try to get the referral, then I think if we consider that, then there are a lot of opportunities in this field. You just have to look for it. Like, you won't just see it right there on your screen. You have to search for it. That's there.
Wow. So I think this was like the entire process, everything that we discussed today. This is like a whole journey for me, because I think you have
Yeah.
grown very much as a person through this whole process. Like contacting people,
Yeah.
marketing yourself, and like even within the design field, all the skills that you gained, like researching things. And it's very amazing to know, like this is something that I can personally see myself, knowing more about, like investigating, getting a little, like getting my hands dirty with these things. So like kudos to you for having, like done so many things. But now my final and very important question of the day is that you actually, like we discussed that there aren't that many opportunities, but you still decided to take that leap of faith and go for design instead of software development roles. So what, like how did you like manage to get through that time, like that anxiety, or of so many people around you doing all these things, and you're just thinking that what am I even doing? So how did you like manage
Yeah.
all this? I want to know this.
Okay. Yeah, it was okay. It was a nightmare. I wouldn't lie about it, because I had started, doing a little bit of coding before the start of placement season, because I was that scared that I was not going to get a job in design, and it would be really foolish to, jump back to the design field having no experience. But the main things that actually got me through was, first thing, that I had really good connections, like make really good connections. I had friends who are designers, I had seniors who are designers. So I would ask them and I would tell them about my situations, and they would always give me a logical advice. So that really helped me to make the decisions better. Second thing, I actually took a risk with it. So that's there. And third thing, again, it's very related to having a lot of connections and having good friends. That is because you actually need to have support from the background when you're making or when you're going through this phase. So do not hesitate to ask for help. That is one thing. And also read as many articles as you can related to your question. Like there are plenty of Medium articles out there. So I would, like for example, I would read any article about people getting a really good first design job and how they got it. Then I would search those people on LinkedIn and connect to them. And there's this one person that I connected, and she told me like she also had her first design job in Zeta, and that was also really huge. So I asked her like, how did you manage to get your first design job without previous experience? So she told me that yeah, if your portfolio is good, if you can showcase yourself through your work, then yeah, it wouldn't be that hard. So all these things really helped me to, it really got me through this whole situation. So yeah, that's the.
And now that you're at the end of the road, would you say that it was worth it?
Definitely it was worth it. I mean, I like I know it only has been 1 week since the job, but I'm really happy with my work. I mean, I look forward to the meetings and the sync ups, and I really look forward for them giving me the tasks and everything. So yeah, I really enjoy the whole work. So it was really worth it. I mean, yeah, I would have been doing coding right now and crying all the time, even though I have really good friends who would help me out in coding. Like they would teach me about coding and everything, but still I know I would be crying right now that okay, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this, but still. So yeah, it was really worth it.
Wow, there's all this, like, I feel like, very positive, with whatever you're saying right now. It's like, radiating your positiveness, like, because of you being happy doing what you're doing. And there's something not a lot of people actually focus on. They think that, I'm doing this thing for the rest of my life, probably, and just gonna be okay with, not being happy with it. So kudos again for doing this. I had a time. I learned so many new things today. This is like hands down one of the best interviews I've had so far. So thank you so much.
That's really sweet. Thanks.
Thank you so much for connecting, Sunidhi.